What a week we have in store. It is the Betfred St Leger Festival. So excited for fantastic days coming your way from town. Well, the final classic of the season is the big one, of course. The Betfred St Leger itself won 7 times by the great Aidan. He's got a brilliant team going for an 8th success this year as well. I've got the team around me. You may have seen us, of course, for Cheltenham last year and the Betfred Derby. We've got Aidan O'Hara joining us over from Ireland. We'll get that angle for you. And I know he likes one at a price. And also our very own Frankie Foster as well. He'll be joining me at Doncaster for the first couple of days as well. We'll talk to Aidan first. We've been dominated the Betfred St Leger by the Irish of late. We're going to look at a few of the other races over the week as well. But it is 4 brilliant days of action ahead, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a great meeting. The one thing about the flat, there's plenty of high quality 3, 4 day meetings during the season. York, Doncaster, compared to maybe the jumping, it's maybe two really big ones. But Doncaster's a very good meet. There's a number of good races there. The
Yeah.
Ledger looks very exciting with three very, very high quality Aidan O'Brien horses, two of which we don't know what they're like really. And it's a very good race. It's the best. I think it might be the best ledger in a while, I'd say. With it's a good betting heat, I'd say as well. There's a good few with a chance in it. Very
Yeah.
nice race.
2017 will take some beating when Capri beat Stradivarius, Coronet, of course, Crystal Ocean.
Yeah, that one,
No
yeah.
rekindling, what an effort that was. But you never know what the future holds. And Frankie, you're going to come up and join us as well at Doncaster. I mean, it is a fantastic meeting. How much are you looking forward to it?
I can't wait, Matt, because I'm excited for some classic hospitality as opposed to sitting on my front porch right now waiting for the Wi-Fi man to turn up. My setup, I've got to apologise for today, isn't quite up to St Leger standard, but having a look at the racing over the 4 days, there's a lot to look forward to. And I think it's a really, really good betting meeting. There's, a lot of quality in there. There's good fields. There's plenty on offer from 5 furlong sprints up to, the 2 mile 2 race. And in all of them, there's a lot of competition. So there's probably prices to be had and hopefully a good week and we can steer viewers in the direction of some winners today.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Yes, TV waits for no man, doesn't it? Doesn't wait for Wi-Fi, but he's with us. That's the main thing. He's with us to give us his thoughts. We'll start with the big one then. It is the Betfred St Leger. As we said here, we just heard that You Got to Me, the Irish Oaks winner, has been supplemented by Valmont and Rafe Beckett and the team. So she adds another dimension to the race now, which we didn't think we would get. So you've got the three Aidan O'Brien horses, of course, at the head of the market. Illinois, Jan Brugel and Grosvenor Square. You Got to Me thrown into the mix. We've got Sunway, an Irish Derby runner-up as well. We've got the Betfred Derby fourth, Dare Mallet. I could go on and on. As Aidan just said, it is a real decent renewal, one of the best we've had for a few years. It might be a small field. Maximum of 10 will go to post. But Aidan, we'll start with you. A strong hand coming over from Aidan O'Brien, of course, looking for that 8th victory. I know you like one at a price. So just sum up the race for us and give us what you think may come out on top.
Yeah, I had a look at I was originally thinking God Illinois is going to be hard to beat in this. But I've gone and looked at all those races again with the three Aidan O'Brien horse, Illinois, Jan Brugel and Grosvenor Square. And I think in the Voltager, possibly King's Gambit and the other horse, the fourth there, I can't remember his name, were very close. I think probably too close for me. So I'm not sure of that farm. I mean, how good it is. We kind of know what Illinois is like. If nothing else improves, he's going to run to that 115, 16, 17, 18, whatever it is. But I think he might be too short. Jan Brugel this time is not going to have the age of Ryan Moore. And anybody, if you've seen his last two runs, this horse has taken a really good ride to win both. Like unbelievable ride in Goodwood from Moore. And I wonder, is it a bit early for him? But the one of those three that kind of sticks out a bit, if Grosvenor Square, like he got caught by Tower London, but Tower London on his day is, he's more than likely the second best stayer in training, I'd say, certainly on good ground. He's a very good horse. But I mean, basically, he's beaten Absurd and Vauban by 10, 15 lengths in his last two runs. Now, I know both of those maybe weren't, they weren't 100% fit, but they got nowhere near. that might be the best form in the race. You Got to Me has really added to it, I think. Like she looked a stare. I think Coolmore think what's the name of this Content must be a really good filly because they've used Port Fairy as the pacemaker the last twice, and Port Fairy won the Rippersdale, wasn't it? The Group 2 in Royal Ascot. I think she's a very good filly, and You Got to Me was closing at the end. And then, I mean, you have Sunway. I don't think there's anything between any of those. At the moment, I don't think there's anything between any of them. And on the day, whichever of them is the biggest price, Sunway is second in the Irish Derby. He didn't even get the greatest trip. Similarly, in the King George, um, he got stopped a couple of times. He's a furlong trying to get out in the King George. He has just as much upward potential as the rest of those. So I'm very interested to see. I was trying to pick an outsider, but unfortunately it's not running because we're only after finding out that kinesiology isn't running. It's going to be running in Leopardstown instead. But I'm not sure about the outsiders in this. It's a 5-horse race, but 5 proper, 115 maybe. And of the ones I've seen so far, I like Rosemere Square, and I wonder will he get to a bit of a price because remember there's no Ryan Moore, so it's not going to be as obvious from Aidan O'Brien's stable which they think. I think Wayne Larden, but probably on Illinois because he was on it in the Walter.
Yeah, Wayne Lord will be on Illinois. They kind of told me last week that hopefully Gavin Ryan can come over and ride Grosvenor Square if Donica doesn't need him at Leopardstown, and maybe somebody like Sean Levy could be on Jan Bruegel. But Frankie, like Aidan says, he can't see much between those top 5, and it is hard picking up between the Aidan O'Brien 3. I mean, talking of Grosvenor Square, when I spoke to him, he was the one that he spent most time talking about because he said, we're not got to the bottom of it yet. I mean, he ran him into the ground of the Irish St Leger Trail. He only just got closed down by Tower of London the time before that. He said they've only got to the bottom of him and he just can gallop him into submission. It was interesting. He was the one that he spoke more highly of it in a way, Grosvenor Square. But, he's got the favourite in Illinois and he's got this unbeaten horse in Jan Bruegel. And he's got 3 solid darts, so solid that Los Angeles, an Irish Derby Great Voltage winner, isn't needed. He's off to Ireland.
I know, yeah, we haven't got the benefit of just saying back whatever Ryan sides with, because that's what I've been doing most of the season, and he hasn't really got it wrong, has he? So it means we've got to scratch our heads and do our homework a little bit more. I agree with most of what Aidan's just said, particularly about You Got to Me being probably pretty high class, because Content, I think, it is rated very highly by the Coolmore guys. So I agree with Aidan there. She's certainly making it interesting. Similarly, Sunway, great performance behind Los Angeles, which is very similar form to obviously Illinois, who got close to Los Angeles. The only thing I maybe disagree with is the fact that Illinois doesn't have any improvement left in him. I think he might up to a mile 6. When he's raced, he looks a little bit laboured, and probably the further he goes, I think the better he's going to be. And potentially you can mark him up slightly for being behind Los Angeles, because Los Angeles had the benefit of Ryan Moore and the benefit of probably the others running to suit his race that day. So I would say there's a touch of improvement left in the favourite, and he'd be my selection out of the Coolmore 3. And then outside of that, Illinois with a good trip round. And obviously the benefit of Oisin Murphy, potentially, I don't know who will ride actually, would be a kind of extra bonus in his favourite. But it's really tricky. It's really competitive. If you nailed me for a selection, I think I would just stick with Illinois. So, some way like each way at 7s or whatever, I think you're guaranteed to be in the mixer. But I just don't know. I think Illinois would just edge it, just be a bit tougher.
A bit more streetwise. So Illinois with Frankie, maybe some way. Looks a solid each way option. Aidan?
I mean, mine will probably depend on price on the day, but I'd probably go with. I'm a bit negative on Jan Bruegel, and I'm really not sure. As much as I like Content, and I'm not sure about You Got to Me in this race. I kind of like Sunway and Grosvenor Square. So whichever of those, any of those two are in the. I mean, Sunway 7-1 now. I think he might probably drift. And Grosvenor Square, depending on which jockey, is probably going to drift as well. Because if you look at his form, just it looks like, he's exposed enough, but he's not. He hasn't been running properly. So I have a feeling he could get to a decent price. I might just have a small win bet on both. I mean, it's not really like me because normally I'm going down the field there and I'd be looking for Euphoric to place at 100 to 1. There's too many good horses. There's 5 very good. Let's assuming Los Angeles don't run. Even Dara Meal, there's too many decent horses for the big outsiders to get involved, I'd say. But at the moment, the way the prices are now, I kind of like Grosvenor Square in some way.
Yeah, I think some ways a real solid each way bet, but it is hard to pick between the Aidan O'Brien trio, with the punter certainly thinking Illinois could be the one to give an 8th success. Just have a look at a couple of other races as well going through the week at Doncaster. We start on Thursday with a couple of Betfred sponsored Group 2. Well, look at the Philly St Leger, the Betfred Park Hill Stakes. Now, again, Ireland got a strong idea. They've got Shamida entered for Dermot Weld. Port Fairy as well. You mentioned a little bit earlier, Aidan, the Ribblesdale winner. She is likely to come here. Aidan told me last week. We've also got Night Sparkle. He's run 2 cracking races in good company. And Scenic winner, the Goltress at York. I mean, these are obviously entries going into Thursday. Anything in the Park Hill, Aidan?
I mean, I do quite like Port Fairy. I mean, it depends on the price. It's just going to come up from here now. But as I said, she's been used the last twice as a pacemaker. Yeah, she's 8 to 1. I'd be happy enough with that now. I think it might be difficult for some of the older horses to give her weight, and I'm not that interested in the other 3-year-olds. So if she's ridden this time, we'll say more normally, I would definitely be interested in her. I think she's actually got the best form, but she's just paying for having to, pacemake for content. So we'll see how she goes. I kind of interested in what Aidan or Joseph O'Brien has 3 big outsiders there in Belhaven, Derrida, and Dancing Tango. I'd be interested in Derrida, who's up to 50 to 1, if she gets entered, because she's quite unexposed and some of her form last year is very good. She was poor first time out for Joseph, but at the time he wasn't in great form. He's in very good form now. They're kind of similar ratings, but she's the most unexposed. I wouldn't be surprised if you see me on the day maybe plumping for an each way bet on Derrida, if that's the one he goes for, because he has 3 similar horses there, but she's the most unexposed and they're all big prices. I'm just interested to see where that horse goes.
Just keep an eye on what Joseph does then. And Frankie, I'm a fan of Port Fairy, and she's been a sacrificial lamb, as Aidan says, the last twice. But if she brings her Ave game Ribblesdale form, then I think she is certainly the one.
Yeah, I agree, actually. Or the 2 I'm looking at are both from the Yorkshire Oaks. It'd be Port Fairy and Mistral Star. Port Fairy obviously used as a pacemaker and then faded, and Mistral Star, she travelled well, but didn't quite pick up when it got into a little bit of a battle. Maybe a little bit further might suit Mistral Star if they just go that touch slower and she can travel nicely for a long way. And then, yeah, opposingly, if Port Fairy doesn't go so hard, she probably will finish a race better. So I'm looking at that Group 1 Yorkshire Oaks form. There's lots of fillies in here that have kind of got Group 2, Group 3 form, but haven't really hit the top level. Those 2 have been in the mixer in a Group 1, and they have won that kind of Group 3 level. So those 2 for me, it's interesting what happens and how the race pans out. And it will be fascinating, really, to see if Port Fairy is just given an easier time, how she finishes the race. And similarly, a little bit further, steadier pace will suit Mistral Star. So we'll see what's happening by the time we get there, and how strong the Coolmore team's looking. Probably Port Fairy each way. She's high class, isn't she? She's Royal Ascot winner. She should be able to mix it with most of these.
Yeah, she is. She was a decent price at that day as well. I'll stick with you, Frank. Let's talk about the Doncaster Cup, the Betfred Howard Wright Doncaster Cup, named after, of course, the stalwart, the Racing Post editor, and obviously massive fan of the St Leger. Never missed a race since the age of 3. Sadly passed away recently, but he will be honoured with the big staying race on the Friday. Now we've got the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th lining up from Goodwood, but with Kyprios out of the way. At these stages, keep beating themselves up, don't they? It's a case of whose turn. It's like the big 5 furlong sprint handicaps, Frankie. Whose turn is it this week?
Yeah, it's a great race, and brilliant that Betfred have titled it that as well. I'm going to keep this one simple. And I said at the start of the show, there's plenty of prices to get it to. This is the favourite that I really like. And if you want to have a go at a fab, I think this is the race to do it in, because Sweet William's only been behind Kyprios and Trawlerman in his last 2 starts, and he's been in front of Gregory, Trushan, Coltrane, even Vauban, who won at York. So he has been coming out on top in most of these staying races, and if been beaten, it's been by Kyprios and Trawlerman, who are top level. He also has the benefit of racing over 2.5, so we know he stays, whereas Gregory will step up slightly in trip. I've tried to be clever in the past and make reasons for improvement or different tracks, etc., etc. I'm holding this on Bear Form, who's been coming out on top most frequently. He's also ran well at the track before. I think with Kyprios not being here, he should have the beating of this field. And I just like the way he races and the way he finishes, and a bit of Donny form doesn't do any harm either. So the favourite for me, and I do think is reasonably priced, Sweet William.
Very well, and Sweet William then for Frankie. And obviously Harbour Wind ran at the weekend. I expect to see him. I'm not sure Point Lansdale stayed in the Yorkshire Cup, so I don't expect him to come. So one of these British days, they keep beating each other. Aidan Coltrane obviously won this race 2 years ago, beating Trushan. I think it was a very short price favourite. He got on the board last year, Trushan. The ground should be okay for him. But surely it's only a small field. But I think Frankie may be right. Is Sweet William the one to be on, or do you fancy one at a poke at a price?
I kind of feel there's a lot of horse in this that don't like winning. Now, Sweet William has really come up. He's definitely the best form. He's come up against kind of unbeatable. I'm not sure he probably stays the 2.5 miles. This is probably ideal. I don't think Gregory is a bit of a disappointment. I wouldn't like to be backing him or Trushan. Point Lansdale might go, I'd say. Did Aidan say he was or wasn't going? I don't think he stays anyway, so it's not going to matter. I'm going to end up. I know what I'm going to do. I'm not going to back the favourites anyway, because I'm not going to back anything at 2-1. I'm going to end up backing Coltrane. I'm a fan of the horse. He wins enough time. He doesn't run. He doesn't run to farm all the time, but if he runs to farm and the ground is good, he'll have a very decent chance in this. And he's the sort. He's never an each way bet. He wouldn't be anyway. There's only 8 horses. I doubt there's not going to be 8 on the day. If it runs to farm, the race gets run right for him. I think he has a better than he's currently 11-1. He probably have a better than 11-1 chance of winning. So he'd probably be the one I go. And I can't pick Gregory, Point Lansdale, Trushan. I mean, it's literally a 2-horse, not 2-horse race, but Coltrane may, in the end, if he's on farm, maybe only have Sweet William to beat. But it's very hard to tell, because he's sometimes not. He's never going to be an each way prospect, even if there was 8. But on his farm and on his day, he's capable of it. So he'd probably be the one I'd be backing in that race.
Yeah, won the race 2 years ago, of course, and yeah, good little contest, that one. Right, let's talk about the Flying Childers. Again, I'll start with you this time, Frankie, because I know we were obviously at Goodwood and you were at York. Big Mojo won the Morecambe and then was 4th, up to 6 films of the Gym Crack. Won last year with the same connections with Big Evs. He drops back to the minimum. Blinking, you'll miss it, this juvenile contest over the Flying 5 furlongs, but you've got the 1-2 from a listed race at York, Tropical Storm and Magnum Force. You've got Asterius, which I know your horses you like, and if I remember rightly, Koto de Kazi, you're all over her as well at Goodwood. So which one do you like in here?
Yeah, you mentioned a few that I've backed. Asterius has been probably the most beneficial for my pocket this season, bar being beaten at Goodwood, but I managed to back him over in France. He's ultra consistent, and I think some people hate these sorts of bets. I don't mind them. Each way at 5s, 9-2, something like that. I really think he'll be in the top 3. It just depends if one's too good for him or the race doesn't quite pan out for him, like I would suggest it didn't at Goodwood. Big Mojo probably had first run on him and just managed to get in front. But he's ultra consistent. He's very good. He's improving. James Doyle's partnered him and won on him. I just think he's proper solid at the top of the market. And then a horse that's actually, well, a couple of these have finished in front of him, Scott. But Arizona Blaze has been, right, I think is overpriced anyway. It's been holding his own in Irish Group 1s and Group 2s. Finished behind Babouche. He went on to beat Whistle Jacket, who I'm a big fan of. I think he's a proper horse. And then ran well at York. And probably the reason I'd like to side with him each way is He's quite straightforward, like Asterius. He'll be prominent. He might go from the front. He's raced over 6 recently. This is over 5. So just go hard, catch me if you can, and see if he sees it out. So they'd be my 2, both each way. One's obviously a bit of a better price, but I really believe you get a run for your money with those 2 over 5.
There we go then. Yeah, a couple against the field. And Aidan, I mean, Tropical Storm beat Magnum Force, but if you watch that race, then Colin Keane had to come from the stand side all the way across to follow Tropical Storm through and just failed to get there. I think he'll reverse that form. Again, if some of these at the top of the market do go to post, it's a good wide open sprint contest.
It's a very good race. And I don't think there's any 2-year-old that ever back at 4-1 in a 5 furlong sprint like this. That's a difficult. He looks he's going to end up the favourite. I think that Magnum Force. I have a couple that I'm going to be interested in. We'd say 3. Arizona Blaze. I also like that Frankie liked. He's just very solid, so he's going to get involved no matter what. I also like this Treasure Isle is a very fast horse, but the one I'm mainly interested in, I'm interested to go, is a Jessica Harrington trained Saratoga Special. So this is a maiden, but I had a look at his couple of runs. I think he's a very fast turn of foot and needs to be played really late. And I think he's capable. I think he's probably very quick. He's very green. He's been very green the last twice in good races. Treasure Isle was like third to that Babouche as well. That's a decent sprinter. But I think Saratoga Special was the best horse in that race and the best horse in the following race. And those are very decent maidens. But it's just this, he had a very, very quick turn of foot in both races to catch and sort of started moving his head left and right at the end of both races. It's probably cost him the win, maybe, certainly in his last run. So one of the things I'll always do, I'm always keeping an eye on if Jessica sends a horse for a start, because she doesn't waste both trips now, ever, both over jumps and on the flat. And I'd say there's nothing between him and Treasure Isle, and then maybe Arizona Blaze, maybe. But right now, I'd like Arizona Blaze, maybe, but Saratoga Special is the main one. I'm waiting to see what price. That could be anything between like 25 and 50 to 1. It's very hard to tell. I think it'll be a big price because it's a maiden. It is very green, but might be the type. It is a good few at the top of the market have had a number of runs, so far. Asterius a lot of runs. Arizona Blaze the same. You'd be wondering Treasure Isle the same. You'd be wondering is something going to come out of the pack, but that's the one I like maybe at the price. Not its current price. I'm pretty sure it'd be much bigger. I'm pretty sure it'd be in the 40-50 range.
Keeping on the maiden, then Saratoga Special in the Flying Chills. I'm going to stick with the 2-year-olds because the opening race on Saturday on Betfred St Leger Day is the Betfred Champagne Stakes, won in recent years by likes of subsequent 2,000 guineas winner Caldin. 2 Darn Hot won this as well, and Richard Hannon's Star Miler chinned it. We've got a field of 11 at the entry stage, maybe whittle down even further. We've got the Vintage Stakes winner Iamori City for Godolphin, likely to head the market. We have got the Superlative Run-Up Seagulls 11 for Hugo Palmer as well. We've got the Doncaster Course and Distance winner Chancellor for John Thady Gosden. We've got the Vintage Stakes second Wolf of Badenoch. I mean, again, it's hard picking with these unexposed juveniles, isn't it? But have Godolphin got the right favourite here, Aidan?
No. I prefer from that race, I prefer Wolf of Badenoch, I think. I think the track will suit Wolf of Badenoch better. Didn't he beat, I think in his first race, didn't he beat his farm has really worked out now. I don't do a lot of looking at 2-year-old races, to be honest. I kind of wait till the day. But this one definitely interests me. It seems to me that he has a nice long stride. I think he'd be suited by Doncaster. Of the UK ones, I would prefer him to Amori City, and I was waiting for what price he is. I'm probably slightly disappointed in that he's maybe 9-2, 5-1, but I kind of figured Amori City might be favourite, and I would prefer Wolf of Badenoch to Amori City, and we'd see what the prices get to. I don't mind this Camille Pissarro either. He's the sort that's going to get back to form. He's very experienced as well. But at the moment, I kind of half expect Wolf of Badenoch to turn the tables at Amori City. I just see that Morris City probably has a penalty here. He's carrying £3 more. Well, if there's £3 difference from their last run, I'd certainly want to be Wolf of Badenoch.
Yeah, discrepancy in price. I do believe the plan for Camille Pizarro, I believe, is the sales race on the Thursday. That's where Aidan was alluding to when we went over there. But he obviously still got 4 entered in here. What about you, Frankie?
That was my question. Is Camille Pissarro going to run? Probably wherever he does will be a good each way bet for me. I think he is dying out to win a good race. After going off Fav at the Royal meeting and then finishing behind Babusha, we've mentioned, and being unlucky, I think, at York, drawn 1 and not really. There's the rest of the road. Not really getting the race to plan at York. But anyway, that's for another day. I think Amori City's obviously got a favourites chance. As ran well both at Newmarket and at Goodwood, was it last time? One that looks quite exciting, but maybe surprised the team at home right there, right now, because went off 11-1 in an average race. You know, we'd have to take a big step forward to win this, but was visually impressive in that race. God knows whether be able to do it coming up against some of these higher class horses, but that might be one to have a go at each way on its second start for Richard Spencer. But with Camille Pissarro out, he was kind of where I was looking if he does go elsewhere. The favourite would be the most likely winner, but I'm not mad keen on it.
Okay, not mad keen on that. Then it's sure enough. Aidan happy with Wolf of Badenoch. We'll skip the Portland. I'll come back to the Portland in a minute because I've just got entries through for that. For the 5.5 furlong handicap. There's one that I've had an eye on, and I'll give you that in a second. We'll look at the Betfred Park Stakes first, the Group 2. And again, we'll start with you, Frank. We've got the old boy Kinross in here. He's going to take a large chunk out of the market. Godolphin are hoping Noble Dynasty can bounce back from his disappointing effort in the Lennox. Nostrum has been a big talking horse this year. I've only seen him twice, though. Was a bit back to form in the Criterion. Then we've got a couple of 3-year-olds. Lead Artist. A lot of talk about him. He did it nicely at Goodwood. Lake Forest, of course, runner-up twice this year and then got upset in the stalls in the City of York Stakes as well. So we've got to get at the older brigade versus the 3-year-olds here in this Group 2.
Yeah, you mentioned 2 that I like. The first being Lake Forest, who was gutted at York. I really fancied him at York, and then when Audience didn't run his race, we had a big price winner. You go, no, that was his for the taking. This may be harder. Much a bigger field, obviously, and you still have some top class horses in here, but yeah, I'll give him another chance. A second to win a share in at Ascot over 6 is great form, and I think he will improve for 7 furlongs. So hopefully he behaves himself in the stalls and we get to see what he can do. He definitely makes the shortlist. And then Nostrum, who is obviously a year older. We haven't seen as much. Maybe he's had his issues. He's been gelded, and he ran second on his first start since being gelded. I don't mind, or I certainly think a lot of horses perform back to their best on their second start after a gelding operation. Certainly the further you go as well, maybe 5-6 furlong sprinters seem to get away with it a bit more, but when you start going 7 a mile and further, I can excuse their first run since they're gelding up, and he was a high class horse, and he's obviously going to retain some of that potential. He showed that when he was second at Newmarket, so I think he can run a big race. I know he's a horse for a lot of people that has probably let them down a few times. But he showed enough at Newmarket to suggest that he can make his way back up to his early promise. So 2 that have got to kind of prove it in this race, and I haven't got prices yet, but I'm definitely interested in both of them, Nostrum and Lake Forest.
Yeah, around about 4-1 Nostrum, 7-1 Lake Forest. I want to mention one at a price. I know Frank, you know this one is Socialite for Charlie Hills. Is a horse that he's actually won at the track. He won over 7 furlongs at the track, beat King's Gamble, who then went 5th at the Britannia, and then himself was 2nd at Goodwood. Socialite was way behind at Goodwood. That was over a mile, and it was very quick ground. I think back on a better or good, more softer surface, plus the drop down to 7 furlongs. I mean, to put him in at 33s here, I think that's absolutely massive if he can get back to that early form. Tom Marquand can't ride because he'll be in Ireland. Interesting if they give William Cox the chance in this Group 2. He's won on him twice. But you remember him at Newmarket over the mile, he went off like a scolded cat and was still in their pitch at the end. So at a massive price, he's won. But I've taken Aidan's Thunder because I know he's the one for the big prices.
Yeah, the prices have only come in on this, so I found it hard to know what to go with. I was hoping River Tiber would have run here because he's one that's going to eventually come back to farm. I tell you who I like right at the current prices. I'd really like Should Have Been a Ring in this. I think it's clear enough that Kinross isn't really what he was last year. And Should Have Been a Ring's third in that Group 1 over 7 furlongs. I can't remember what it's called. And the Longchamp Day is very good form. So his form is no different, 7 and 6. He only ran last week, but that'd be regular-ish occurrence, and he got hampered. And he stayed on at the end. I wouldn't be too worried about that. He's an in and out horse anyway. But right now he's 25-1, and I'm going to look here, and I think I wouldn't mind betting he's the second highest rated in it. And he's the second highest rated in it, and a minimum of every third run, he's going to put in a very decent run. I think it's going to suit him this race. I think that's quite big now. 25-1 for Should Have Been a Ring. Like he's a Group 1 horse. He's banging the door at big races. So is Kinross, but as I said, he still looks good, but I don't think he doesn't seem to be what he was last year. And there weren't much between Kinross and Should Have Been a Ring in that foray, it's called, isn't it? The foray in Longchamp. Lake Forest I would have originally thought before this weekend you'd have thought Lake Forest might even be fav here because he's form within a shared elite status, but they didn't really. They've been well booted aside now in the 3-year-old sprinters have been kind of booted aside in both Group 1 sprints. So you'd wonder about the overall form. So at the moment, I wouldn't have much of a doubt anyway. We want to be with Should Have Been a Ring, and it wouldn't really worry me that he ran last week.
We just gone, of course, in the Spring Cup. I'll just talk about the Portland. Now the Frankie's very still, or we are having connection issues with it. I'm thinking it's connection issues. So I'll stick with you, Aidan. The one I wanted to mention, the Portland, I don't know if you got a chance to look at this because entries have just come through. Was Cover Up for Jonathan Thady Gosden. Now he's £5 better off with Almond for that run at York, and yet he got no luck whatsoever. He was all dressed up with nowhere to go. Time and time again, he tried to come with a run under Rab Havlin, but got bumped and bulked. And although he was drawing in the right place, he just couldn't get on. And then he came through, and then he just weakened slightly. I think the 5.5 furlong trip is exactly what Cover Up needs. And that £5 turnaround with Elman Jed, whose favourite, Cover Up's been put in around about 14. So I think he's a knocking each way bet. But have you guys had a chance to look at the Portland?
I've got one if I'm alive and not still.
Yeah, you're alive. You're alive. We've got you.
I was stretching my 1 bar of connection to look at the Portland and just make sure I had it right. The Vintage Claret was second, was it? No, fifth in this last year off of 92. Races off of 90 after a slightly disappointing season in terms of placings, but there has been a few excuses, particularly at York last time. I thought maybe he was unlucky and things didn't work out well for him that day. Back to Donny, back to his lowest mark in a long time, to be honest. I wonder what he last won off. Last one off of 91. There you go. So just below his last winning mark, which came after his 5th at Donny. I'd certainly give him a chance. And then one that I can't quite figure out, but I have backed a couple of Cop, another that's steadily moving down from the likes of 105 rated.
Desert Cop,
yeah. Big price. Again, one that's just falling down the weights, but maybe a bit of a cliff horse myself. But Vintage Clarets, I'd give a chance. I say there's been excuses rather than a complete regression in ability.
Yeah, I agree.
We should be sounding the agreement klaxon there, because I think I might like Desert Cop in this now at a huge price. He's like 50-1. I stupidly picked him at the weekend in Kempton, but you just have to have one look at it. He strolled around the back and had absolutely no interest. I mean, they were clearly had something else in mind. I actually didn't think it'd be this now. I thought maybe it would be the Air Gold Cup, but I'm actually not sure he stays 6 furlongs, and I'm not sure he's quite quick enough for 5. So now that I see him here, in the context of having backed him last week and having watched the race, which was a clear jog around effort, I'd be very interested in Desert Cop in this, like very interested at 50-1. He's won off this mark already this year. He also ran really well in the Wokingham,
Wokingham, Wokingham, yeah.
Yeah, he's ran really well there as well. I think there is some kind of plan. I think he's going to be capable. It's with these sprinters anyway. Like it's a lottery. You know, you just so much has to go right. You can't be taking short prices in any of these races. But he has the capability to get involved here now, and now that I see it, which I hadn't really thought of. The entries hadn't been out for this last week. You know, the way the Air Gold Cup is a much longer entry, so I could see that he was entered for the Air Gold Cup. But this 5.5 furlongs, this makes a load of sense now. I like it.
Interesting.
There's a couple of other ones I'm interested, but he's going to be my main interest here.
We've just watched Aidan's brainwave happen live, haven't we?
Yeah,
exactly.
much, yeah.
I hadn't seen the price. Yeah, I hadn't seen the price. So, yeah.
That's not a real light bulb behind it. That's just literally come on.
No, there is. Yeah. No, I mean, like all these things, he's 50 to 1, so you know, God knows. But it's the kind of thing as you know, I'm always looking for the big price ones. It's the kind of thing you have to go against the convention, really. But of his runs this year, he's had 3 very decent runs. He's won and he's been near enough placed at Ascot. You add that to last weekend's, you know, dotting around the back. I think this trip is the right trip. I'm going to be interested in him.
Yeah, he's a specialist trip, 5.5 furlongs, isn't it? It's interesting. Maybe not quite quick enough for the 5. It doesn't quite see out the 6, but it is flat and fast. And yeah, of interest. And I must give it a shout to Vintage Clarets as well, because he caught my eye at York. That was a really good run from what turned out all week to be a bad draw. So, right, that's some of the feature races then. Some of the Betfred sponsored action at the St Leger Festival this week at Doncaster. If there was one horse that we've either spoken about or has caught your eye ahead of this week that punters can really latch onto, I'll start with you, Aidan. The one horse at Doncaster that you think, yeah, that's what I'm having a bit of.
Well, Desert Cup, and I mean, I'm a handicap, a handicap type of person. I'm interested in that race. Is always going to be my favorite betting race of the 4 days. Anyway, I love the likes of the Portland, the Air Gold Cup, those big sprint handicaps. So I like him. Actually, I mean, at a shorter price, I do like this Wolf of Badenoch. Now that one, mainly because of the difference, and Port Fairy maybe, but mainly because of the difference between the favourite and Wolf of Badenoch, and I'd be kind of convinced he'd turn the tables there.
From the races we spoke about, Sweet William, I just think is the best horse in the race. So he's kind of one I really would hope gets the job done. And then another horse we mentioned, but don't know what it's going to go up against, if where it's going to run. But Camille Pissarro is just on my list of horses that has got to win a decent race soon. So provided he lines up in a race that looks winnable and there's nothing obvious to beat him, I think I'm going to back him next time anyway. I think he's due a win.
There we are then. Camille Pissarro, yeah, I do believe he's your best dad anyway. Aidan told me he was going, no, I've already backed him for the sales race. So hopefully that is where he turns up. Wherever you are watching this week, enjoy it. Hopefully you can get yourself to Doncaster and join in the fun. What will be 4 fantastic days of the Betfred St Leger Festival. Thanks to Aidan for joining us, and Frankie as well. He's done really well without his Wi-Fi today. Myself and Frankie will be on course for you at Doncaster this week, bringing you latest news and views. And hopefully wherever you are back in, plenty of luck. And of course, as always, please gamble responsibly.